Good evening. We warmly welcome you all to Realization'21, a podcast series organized by the Wilderness and Wildlife Protection Society of Royal College in collaboration with the Environmental Pioneer Society of Visakha, Vidyalaya, where we take a deeper dive into the depths of some key wildlife issues with a professional. I'm Charith Ahangama, and I will be hosting this episode along with my colleague Nethwin Dharmaratne.
Our guest tonight is a former royalist who has a decade worth of experience studying Sri Lankan biodiversity, former president of the Young Biologists Association of Sri Lanka, and is currently the advisor of the Pearl Protectors. Please welcome Mr. Amila Sumanapala. Good evening, sir.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Sir, before we go into the topic, could you briefly describe how life at Royal influenced you to become the person you are today?
Life at Royal, let's say, when I was at school, I was really involved with scouting, right? So other than, in addition to studies we all do, right? Anyone can study at any school. All schools are good, and they may have different backgrounds, but still, if you are studious enough, you can go through that. What I admire when being at Royal means we were involved with a lot of extracurricular activities. As a scout, I got involved with a lot of different activities which developed most of my skills as a team player, as my leadership skills, and all these administrative and documentation, all these extra skills that helped me develop myself to what I am today. I really appreciate that because that's what that's what helped me to reach the place that I have reached by now. But other than that, I was involved with other activities as well. But I would say for me personally as a scout, and others might others might get the same experience from different other activities. But still, whatever it is, the extracurricular activities and the exposure you get through working as a team and all these skills are the most appreciated. So being in the Royal College gave me the opportunity to widen my horizons in that perspective. So I deeply appreciate that. I got that opportunity because I was in Royal College.
Yes, thank you for that, sir. So moving on to our topics of discussion. So first of all, we would like to talk about the disposing of plastic and polythene to the ocean. So as you all know, it has been a major issue for many years. And this, along with the releasing of harmful chemicals and heavy metals by various means, has now become a huge threat to the marine ecosystem. So, what are the harmful effects of these activities, and how could these be prevented, and how can we minimize the damage caused by these activities?
Plastic and heavy metals are two of the major pollutants that are harming the marine ecosystems around us in many different ways, right? It might cause damages to the ecosystems. It can cause damages to the species in the ecosystems in different levels due to different reasons, not just one. First, it creates litter, and also plastic especially, and also it by ingesting plastic, different organisms encounter with different they go through to different conditions, like the floating syndrome that we see in turtles. You might have heard of it. If not, that what we call the floating syndrome is, there are some turtles, they when plastic ingestion, when they consume plastic, they get trapped inside their digestive tract, which causes trapping of air in the digestive system. Because of that, they cannot dive. So they constantly float throughout the time. They due to that reason, they cannot dive, they cannot eat, they cannot fight, they cannot forage. So that is one thing that we usually observe in relation to the plastic pollution. But other than that, there are so many other different ways where plastic can harm the ecosystems. as well as when it comes to heavy metal accumulation, that's a huge issue, heavy metals, there are various different types of heavy metal. It has a very kind of a vague definition, the term heavy metal. But there are many different metals that we identify as heavy metal. With most of these metals, if overdoses occurs, causes issues with their regeneration, their growth, their reproduction, and all these different systems in marine organisms. It is also harmful to us as well, because heavy metals get accumulated in certain marine organisms, and by consuming these organisms, we also get ingested with heavy metal. Which was there are many different examples for that. That one is the Minamata disease that was discovered in Japan some 60-70 years back, if I'm not mistaken, which was caused by high concentrations of mercury, because there were mercury in the water due to industrial pollution, which get accumulated in marine organisms. And then by eating those marine organisms, it got accumulated in humans, which causes neurological disease that we call the Minamata disease. So all these pollutions, all these heavy metal or plastic, whatever it is, all these pollutants are they have integrated effects on all organisms, not just marine organisms. So what we can do is again a complex answer, because as people, as citizens, what we can do is we can move to a more sustainable lifestyle. That's something that we can do. But as individuals, we can contribute towards that, yes. But if we are going to turn the tides, that change should come from the top. So there should be policy changes that are being implemented, because individuals, as citizens, our contribution to pollution, when you compare it to the industrial pollution or other pollution from other larger sources, is kind of negligible. So we can do, but only up to a certain level. So there should be policy level, there should be national level changes, not just national, international level changes that needs to be happen if we are going to tackle these problems. But as I said, any pollution, any aquatic pollution in marine organisms can have destructive effects on marine organisms and ecosystems in many different mechanisms. So, but still, as individuals, we can do something, we can contribute. So just try to develop a sustainable lifestyle and try to promote sustainable living, and share your ideas with others, and get the message to the community. So that's what we can do as individuals and as a citizen-based organization.
All right, sir. Moving on. Although coral reefs are one of the main tourist attracting resources in Sri Lanka, they have been threatened by various human activities such as destructive fishing methods, coal mining, and such. How could this affect the marine ecosystem and the economy of the country?
Coral ecosystems, again, corals can get damaged or get degraded due to many different reasons. Right now, most of the reasons are caused by humans, yes, but through ocean warming and ocean acidification, and through aquatic pollution, and as well as improper destructive tourism and fishing activities, as you mentioned. What we see is, especially when it comes to fishing, you have bottom trawling, which you have nets that you drag along the bottom of the ocean, which directly mechanically harm the corals, because corals are hard structures, most of the corals. So corals are carboniferous structures where you have coral which is caused by coral polyps, and then there are assemblage of marine communities, fishes, and all these other organisms that are that lives in the coral reef. So direct mechanical damages to the coral reef is harmful to all these organisms. And other fishing practices are dynamite fishing, also which causes direct, the explosions cause direct damage to the ecosystem, as well as cyanide fishing, which is a form of fishing that people use to collect reef fish, especially for ornamental fish plate. You release cyanide into the water, and then which kind of immobilize, which stuns all the animals in the area. And also the cyanide causes it slows down the process of photosynthesis in the algae that lives in the corals. So it can harm the corals in different ways. So all these activities, as a result of all these activities, as well as ocean acidification and ocean warming, are degrading the diversity in the coral reefs around Sri Lanka. Not just around Sri Lanka, all over the globe. If I'm not mistaken, in the last few decades, the coral reefs most of the coral reefs around the globe has kind of bleached and degraded. So it is a global issue. It is a global issue that is difficult to tackle without an integrative approach. So tourism, coral reef-based tourism is, I don't think that's still not really developed in Sri Lanka. We have diving-based tourism, we have coral watching, we have other ocean-based tourism around corals. But right now, due to the bleaching of corals and the degradation of the ecosystems, the magnitude of the industry is not very large. So, but if we conserve corals, and if we kind of rehabilitate the coral ecosystems, which can have beneficial effects for the community as well. So there are various things that you can do. One thing is having proper tourism activities, right, which doesn't cause direct mechanical damage to the coral reef, like walking on corals or collecting corals should be prevented. Anchoring on coral reefs while scuba diving operations should be prevented. That even scuba diving should be kind of it should be regulated to not to harm the corals. And also any fishing, any fishing activities that happens in corals should also be kind of regulated and controlled. So there are various things that you can do which will help the corals to develop, and again, as a result, we will get economic benefit, a greater economic benefit than what we are getting right now.
Yes, sir. Now you spoke about how we can protect the corals that we already have. Just out of pure curiosity, is there any other way that we can revamp the degraded corals? Is there any way that we can bring back these dead corals?
There are different ways. One thing is artificial coral reefs, and also you can facilitate the rehabilitation. You can facilitate the restoration of coral ecosystems through many different ways. What we practice in Sri Lanka right now, what majority of the people is practicing right now, is trying to introduce hard structures, so corals would corals would grow on them. But that might not be the best way. So the coral restoration is a very complex process. Any restoration, any ecosystem restoration is a very complex process, which should be done with ultimate care and look into many different factors. Just by introducing hard surfaces doesn't really help to regenerate the actual coral reef. But there are mechanisms which should be done with proper care and proper scientific investigation.
Yes, sir. Now we spoke about a wide area of things. We spoke about the adverse effects of heavy metals and how we need to switch to a much more sustainable lifestyle. And we also spoke about protecting our coral reefs. So now moving on to a much more, this is a topic that is often spoken about nowadays. So mangrove plants in the lagoon areas play a vital role in the biodiversity of the marine environment. So now, you being a professional, could you explain the importance of these plants and the adverse effects that may cause when the people destroy them for various personal benefits?
Mangroves are important in, and it has many different importance, but the one of the two major things that comes to my mind is mangroves are an important nursery ground for most of the marine organisms, because mangrove ecosystems is a complex ecosystem where which is along the lagoons and along river mouths, where you get most of the what you call the smaller fishes and all the other marine organisms. That mangrove behaves as a nursery ground for many different organisms. So by destroying mangroves, we are destroying the nurseries where the next generation of marine organisms develop. So that would have direct economical and environmental impact on the ecosystems as well as the coastal communities that are depending on mangroves. On the other hand, mangroves provide a live barrier to control coastal erosion, and also act as a filter to the all the pollutants and all the material that are flowing into the ocean through rivers. So it's a very important ecosystem, a very important barrier and a nursery ground to marine organisms, and also by providing those ecosystem services, which also has a very high economical importance as well. Destruction of mangroves would definitely have a direct impact on all these ecosystem services. So if you don't have the nursery grounds, if you don't have proper environmental, proper habitats for the fingerlings to develop, the smaller fish to develop, you won't get the next generations of the marine organism. So because of that, the fishing will be impacted, the coastal communities, the nutrient intake of the coastal communities will be impacted. So there will be many different negative impacts on economical and social strata. So mangroves are extremely important in that sense. We see that in certain areas in Sri Lanka, it has happened in the past couple of years. Where you might have noticed, of course, there were incidents where mangroves were, completely removed from ecosystems for development activities, for aquaculture like shrimp farms, and as well as even the fishing communities sometimes extract mangroves, but on a smaller scale. So they don't really for certain fishing practices in Sri Lanka, they use mangroves. They cut down branches and use it as a to create traps, fish traps. But the effect of that is kind of very minimum, because they in certain areas they utilize the mangroves in a sustainable manner. They don't cut down entire stretches of mangrove. They only use certain amount of branches. So which is kind of doesn't cause a severe damage. But unplanned development in mangrove areas, because mangroves is a unique ecosystem. You won't get those ecosystem benefits from any other ecosystem in the area. So cutting down entire stretches of mangroves for shrimp farming or other development activities which can be done in different areas, maybe adjacent to the coast, but not exactly on top of mangrove areas. So there should be kind of a better land use planning when it comes to these coastal areas, when it comes to mangrove areas in Sri Lanka. We only have a very limited mangrove cover. East and northern provinces have kind of a not very large, but still better mangrove areas than the western and southern coast. But still, it's a very, very, very endangered ecosystem that should be conserved because of the environmental services it provides and the economical services which we can obtain through those environmental services. So mangrove conservation is a very critical concept that should be properly implemented in the country.
Yes, sir. That really should be properly managed. Sir, moving on, as you mentioned before, a lot of harmful effects, most of them are caused by humans. So let's talk about overfishing, which is a main harmful effect caused by humans. According to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, it estimates that 31.4% of fish stocks are either fished to the capacity or overfished. How severe is this impact to the marine ecosystem?
When it comes to fishing, something that we have observed during the last couple of decades is that we have, as a statistic suggests, that the statistics you provide suggest, we have overfished most of the fish stocks in the ocean. So what happened is, earlier we used to fish for larger fish like tuna or swordfish or those kind of larger fish which are on the higher trophic levels in the food web. So in marine ecosystems, in any ecosystem, you have smaller fish which feeds on plant matter, planktons, and other plant matter in the oceans, and then you have slightly larger fish than them which predates on them, and you have even larger fishes which predates on them. That's how it operates. So the ecosystem, the top predators in the ecosystems are usually larger, the larger species, some of the larger species. So first we fish for them, and then once these fish stocks diminishes, you move on to the next largest one. So like that, we have it is called fishing down the food web. So you start from the top one, and then you come to the bottom star. So now as per the some of the research suggests, about 90% of the top predators, the fish stocks of these high upper trophic level fishes like swordfish and tuna has been diminished. So one thing that we observe from our perspective, from fishing perspective, is we don't get any larger fish anymore, right? What we get, if you ask from even the local fishermen, they would say we used to catch much larger fish back in the days, but not now. We only have 1 feet, 2 feet, 1 meter, 2 meter, but we used to catch much larger fish. So that's a trend that we observe even in the local levels. On the other hand, when you think about removing the top predators from the ecosystem, it causes the balance to the failure in the balance. So the entire ecosystem balance in the ocean is disrupted at the moment. So that would have harmful effect, which has been proved in many different setups. I'm not aware of any experiments that were done on ocean marine animals. But if you look at terrestrial animals, there are plenty of examples that showcases that removing of certain trophic levels from ecosystem would collapse the ecosystem balance. So the economical perspective, what we observe, the human perspective is that you are not getting the larger fish anymore. So this is a global trend that has been, the trend has been studied all over the globe, and it's a well-established fact that most of the large fish are not no more. So one thing is, fishermen always try to catch large fish. So that's what they do. There are certain sustainable practices as well. They used to most of the fishermen, most of the good fishermen, they don't catch the smaller fishes. They let them in certain fishing practices, they allow them to they release the smaller ones, so they would have the next generation of fish. So otherwise they won't get a sustainable sustainable fish population. So what we can do is we can implement regulations on fishing, the catch sizes. We can regulate the catch size. We can regulate the amount that you can fish. So there are various management mechanisms that you can try and implement to prevent the collapse of these marine ecosystem balance. So, but right now we see that damage has already occurred. So we have to find ways of getting things back to the normal state. And also we can also look into other fishing practices, other practices that like aquaculture, instead of catching the larger fish from the marine ecosystem. So there are various management mechanisms that you can look into, but still the problem is severe. The problem has been identified. The problem is well known and is global. So it's not a local issue, as you said that the FAO has or FAO and many other marine related and food related organizations acknowledge the issue, but a proper management step has not been implemented in the recent years.
Yes, sir. Now, since we are on the topic of human influence, let's talk about oil drilling. Now, we all know that oil and gases, they are very beneficial to the economy of a country. But what kind of damage and impact does oil drilling has to an ocean? And since you're a professional, sir, could you explain how it affects the Sri Lankan environment and how it indirectly affects the economy as well?
If you are talking about economy, oil and gas drilling is, yes, it's economically beneficial. It would elevate the economic stability of the country to a different level. True. The environmental issues, again, yes, there are so many different issues that could occur. Especially one of the main concerns is oil spill. Oil or gas drilling in ocean means you drill the ocean substrate and remove the hydrocarbons that you collect the hydrocarbons and take it to the surface. So any malfunction in the systems, any malfunction in the pipelines, any damage in the drilling systems, any of the operational systems could cause a huge oil spill that you won't be able to contain. That has happened in several different occasions in the human history. One of the most recent and the most severe issue was the Deepwater Horizon issue. If you remember, that was in, I think, 2010, which occurred in the Gulf of Mexico, where mechanical failure in the drilling system, if I remember correctly, caused a huge, one of, I think, the largest offshore oil spill in the human history. So the environmental impact of that would be severe because oil, marine organisms are not, they are not adapted to oil. So oil can accumulate in marine organisms and cause many different system issues in the marine life. And also it would impact the economical aspect of local communities as well, because it would diminish the fishing, the opportunities to fish, and it would impact the tourism activities. The coastal tourism would collapse entirely. So there are so many things that could go wrong. But on the other hand, yes, development should also happen. So if country, if the policymakers and the administration thinks that offshore oil drilling, if there are oil in the Sri Lankan oceans, if that should be, if we are going to utilize that, then that should be done with ultimate care, that with involving all these mechanisms to prevent anything going wrong. But you can't be too sure. I mean, it has happened in the history, it would happen in the future as well. So that would have many different negative, harmful impact on the ecosystems as well as the economy as well. But still, development should happen. But there are certain ways that you can manage and mitigate the issues that if you have to understand them properly and implement them properly. So any harmful impacts could be minimized and mitigated. The development, when you do development activities, you can't completely remove the harmful effect. What you do is you minimize it and mitigate them and try to prevent that being happening. So that's what you can do. Oil in Sri Lankan waters. I don't know whether this would happen in time in near future, but if it happens, then as citizens of the country, we should all be forcing the government to establish proper mechanisms to control any of the harmful effects.
All right, sir. Moving on. Now we talked about all the adverse effects caused by humans. Let's talk about a natural process that harms the oceans, which is beach erosions, which is caused by natural processes such as longshore current. So is there any human influence on this issue, or is it completely natural? And can humans find a way to stabilize the erosion and protect the beach?
Like any of the issues that we have discussed and all the other issues that we have not discussed, it happens in the natural ecosystems. It happens, but in a very minimal level. So coastal erosion is something that that has been happening throughout the history of the earth. Since the oceans have formed. But what we see is we see an increase of erosions, increase of severity of the erosion due to human activities. There are various different activities that could cause coastal erosion. One thing is certain coastal structures. Certain structures that are built on the coast could cause coastal erosion, and even the structures like ports, harbors, or other barriers in the along the coastal zone would have. What happens is coastal erosion, and in any coastal system, there's a sand budget. You get certain amount of sand from the rivers, and sand also forms and get accumulated on the coast. And due to near-shore currents, long-shore currents, certain amount of sand is washed away. So there's a balance in the system. Any human activity that disrupts the balance would cause coastal erosion. One thing is even the sand mining in rivers can cause coastal erosion, because when you mine sand from rivers, you reduce the amount of sand which are added to the ocean. So sand comes through rivers to the ocean because when with runoff from the mountains and all these low-lying areas, you get a certain amount of soil particles and sand particles in the rivers, which get washed into the ocean and get deposited in the river mouths and adjacent areas. When that amount of sand which get washed through the rivers are going down, when it diminishes, that cause the sand budget of the sand balance of the sand in the coastal areas to disrupt. So that would cause coastal erosion as an indirect impact. So there are various other activities that can also cause erosion. On the other hand, erosion can also be prevented and kind of managed through certain coastal structures using beach walls and all these other structures. You can kind of manage it, but also it's not the ideal way. So you have to regulate the amount of sand that you mine from rivers. You have to regulate the structures that are built on the coastal areas to prevent erosion. You have to regulate the nearshore activities to control the erosion. So there are many different things that you can do. But as all the other issues that we have already discussed. The things are not being implemented in the optimum level. So we see severe erosions in certain areas of the country, which are which are harmful to the environment as well as the coastal communities as well. It causes property loss, property damage, and impact on the tourism activities as well. So it is a natural process, but which has been supported by many different human-induced activities, knowingly or unknowingly, which causes directly or indirectly, which supports the process of erosion.
Yes, sir. Now we spoke about a wide range of things. We spoke about heavy metals affecting marine life, and then we spoke about the coral reef and protecting it and how we can revamp the dead corals. And we also spoke about huge damages caused by oil drillings and etc. So now, since we are running a little low on time, just to finish things off, I would like to ask you something. So, since you are a professional, sir, now, yes, I know that these are hard times, but now we understand that it's almost now or never that we need to quickly adapt and we need to make some changes in order to protect Mother Nature. And many people are keen on doing so, but not everyone knows what the steps that you need to take in order to protect, let's say, marine life, if not wildlife, and Mother Nature as a whole. But today you spoke about many different things that you can, the steps that you can take to prevent these things from happening, if not just minimize the damage caused by these things. So if you have a small piece of advice to the public that you can give, just go ahead, sir.
First of all, if we talk about ocean, it's a very complex ecosystem, right? So there are so many integrated processes and different activities that can have an impact on the ocean and marine ecosystem. So to conserve the marine life or the marine ecosystems, it should be done in. You have to. It's not a simple task. It's a very complex process to get these things moving. What we can do as individuals is, first, as I mentioned, a sustainable living, a sustainable lifestyle always helps nature, right? Because what you mean by sustainable lifestyle means you reduce your impact, you reduce your negative impact, you reduce the resources that you use, you reduce the waste or the any other material that you release. So there are. It's also a complex process. So it's not only about using a sustainable product or anything. Your lifestyle has to change. You have to think about the energy and the resources that you use and how you can reduce the waste that you produce in your houses or by yourself. So it's a complex process. But still, as individuals, we all can contribute. Just take one step at a time and try to move into a more sustainable lifestyle. So that would help the environment as a whole, not just marine ecosystem. Environment, as I mentioned, is a complex, completely a complex system, which cannot be the types cannot be changed just like this. So you have to slowly move towards a more sustainable approaches and reduce your impact on the environment. That's one thing. On the other hand, what you can also do, you can promote these activities, you can promote sustainable living as organizations, as student organizations, as students, as well educated and the next generation of the country. You also can spread the word among your peers, your colleagues, your friends, your parents, your families, anyone that you interact with. Just urge them to take small steps with you. So that would help the entire ecosystem, entire environment as a whole, not just marine ecosystems, the terrestrial ecosystems and everything that we use in the long run. If you are even more interested, you can get involved with people that are trying to make a difference in the legislative level or in the management and policymaking level, by building up public pressure, by trying to get the citizens' messages to them. So there are a lot of citizens which are concerned about this. Their voice has to passed on to the proper management level. So yeah, there are so many things that you can do, especially as students. Learn about environment, try to change your lifestyle, spread the word, and if you are even more interested, just you can also do something more. So get together as students and try to take little steps and help the environment in any way that you can.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful advice. We will surely keep this in mind. And that concludes the first episode of Realization'21. Once again, thank you, sir, for taking time off your busy schedule to talk with us, and hope you have success in your future projects. Thank you and good night.
Yeah, thank you. Good night.